My name's Margaret. Thanks for joining me today on this demo on how to cut vegetables. I know we've been stuck inside a lot since we're all in quarantine, and maybe like me, you've been using this time to try out new recipes. So today we're going to learn how to choose, wash, chop, and store vegetables to use in new recipes. So let's see what vegetables I have in my bag. In my lovely bag of vegetables, I have an onion, a yellow onion, a bell pepper, a gigantic head of cauliflower, a pretty large head of broccoli. I have an even larger head of cabbage. And finally, I have some fresh Brussels sprouts. So the first step is to clean these vegetables. It's always important to wash our vegetables to make sure we get off any dirt or any germs that may be on the outside. So first we'll start with the onion. Luckily, we don't have to clean an onion because it comes growing in its own protective coat. So I'll put this aside. But we do always want to wash off our bell peppers. So bell peppers, what we do is we grab them, we bring them over to the sink, and we wash them under cold running water, making sure to get in there with our fingers and get into all the crevices. Once that is nice and washed off, we put it on the dish towel to dry. Next, we'll do our Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are pretty easy to wash off as well. Brussels sprouts, I'm actually going to dump them into a colander. Wash under water, making sure to rustle them around so they all get clean. And then we put those aside to dry as well. Now, broccoli and cauliflower is a little bit different, but very similar in the ways that we wash them. So with our cauliflower, what we're actually going to do, we're going to bring it over and we're going to swish it around in some cold water. Now, what we're doing when we do that is we're actually making sure that we get inside the nooks and crannies and get all the dirt out of those crevices. So we'll wash it around in the cold water for a little bit. Dump this out. And then I'm going to finish up by washing it under cold water again, making sure to turn it so we get every angle of that cauliflower clean. And then we'll set it on our dish towel to dry. We're going to fill up our bowl with cold water again, because we need to do the same thing with broccoli. So broccoli comes with its own little handle, which is great. We can hold on to its natural handle to squish it around in that cold water. Again, we're doing this to make sure we get into all the crevices of that broccoli, since it has a lot of nooks and crannies as it grows. So we're going to swish it around that cold water. And then just like with the cauliflower, we're going to wash it under cold running water, turning it to make sure that we get into all the crevices. We go ahead and rip off the extra leaves on the broccoli just so it's out of the way. And we put on our towel to dry. Now finally we have our cabbage. So with cabbage, we actually want to chop it first so we can make sure we're getting it clean thoroughly inside and out. So with our cabbage, what we do first is we remove the discolored outside edges. So we want to make sure that we get all the visibly dirty leaves of the cabbage off the outside. And I'm sorry, I may have called it lettuce. It's cabbage. All right, so we'll get this last discolored leaf off. Have a little brown spot on there. Throw it out. And now we're gonna cut our cabbage into fourths. So I'm gonna put it flat on my cutting board. Grab a big knife. This is my favorite knife from Cutco. It was actually a present from a realtor. My favorite knife to use in our house. And we're going to cut this cabbage in half. Now this cabbage is gigantic. I have actually never purchased a cabbage so large before. But it was the one that had the cleanest outside leaves and actually had the tightest feel to it, which means that it's the best quality. Unfortunately, I didn't think through the cutting part when I purchased this giant cabbage. There. And then we cut each half in half again, and there we have quarters of our cabbage. Ta-da! Not so difficult. difficult, although I made it look difficult, didn't I? Now with our cabbage, we again run it under cold running water. And with cabbage, we actually want to take it one step further. I have another clean bowl of cold water sitting here. And we actually want to let the cabbage soak in the cold water for a little bit. So we run it under cold running water, and then we place it into a bowl of cold water to soak. Once that has soaked, we rinse it out in our colander and set it aside to dry. And then when everything's dry, we're ready to chop. First off, we're going to cut our onions. So like I said, we actually don't need to wash onions because they come in their own protective outer shell. And they come in a variety like yellow onions like this. We also have white onions, we have red onions, and we have Vidalia onions, all of which can be used in different ways. When selecting an onion, you want to make sure that it's heavy and firm to the touch. You want to avoid any onions that have any soft spots as you feel around them, and you also want to avoid any onions that have visible mold on the outside. Finally, you want to make sure that your onion hasn't sprouted. So if your onion has green sprouts at the top, that means it's no longer usable to be cut. Now, for the onions, we want to store them in a cool, dry location with good air circulation, and you can actually store them for up to a month. Now, one tip is you always want to make sure that you store your onions and your potatoes separately, because both onions and potatoes are susceptible to moisture in the air. And unfortunately, both onions and potatoes give off moisture as they age. So if they're kept too close to each other, they actually feed off of the moisture given off by one another, and they are more likely to mold faster. So store them separately from your potatoes. Now with onions, the first thing we always want to do is we want to cut off the tip of the onion. We always want to leave the root of the onion intact for a couple reasons. Reason number one is that by keeping your onion connected to the root, if you don't need the whole onion at one time, that allows your onion to stay more moist in the refrigerator, and it prevents it from drying out. The other thing is that when you leave the roots intact, you actually give a place for your fingers to hold on to as you cut it. So it gives you a place to keep your fingers safe from your own knife. So like I said, I'm going to cut off the tip first. So we cut off that tip. That is unfortunately garbage. And we have half of an onion, or we have an onion with a flat top. Now, that gives us a good way to set our onion flat top down on the cutting board, and we can cut that onion directly in half. So I have 2 halves of an onion. So for my recipes this week, I actually only need half of an onion. So the other half I'm going to put in my onion storage container and keep it for the rest of the week, and I'll cut it out next weekend. Now, if you don't have an onion storage container, I strongly recommend purchasing one. They're available for less than $5 from Walmart, Bed Bath & Beyond. I'm sure you can get expensive ones from the Container Store. You could probably even get them off Amazon. But one benefit is that it does prevent your onion from getting too dry in the refrigerator, but even more important, it actually prevents the food in your refrigerator from smelling like onions for the rest of the week. So I'll put this in the refrigerator and use it later. Now we have our half of an onion, and before I cut into it, I want to make sure that I remove any of the papery outside skin. So any skin level that feels like paper, we do want to take off. And this one is a little bit funky, so I'm going to take off that one. So voila, I have half of an onion. Now, if I wanted to use onion slices, what I would do is I would actually just cut against the grain, and it falls off the onion in perfect slices. So we have some onion slices. But this week I actually need to use onions diced up in a soup that I'm making. So the first thing I want to do is I want to chop or slice the onion across its flat outside edge, and that cuts it in half. And then I'm going to take the onion and cut with the grain. So we're going to go with the grain. We want to make sure not to go all the way down to our roots, because if we cut all the way down to our roots, our onion won't stay together anymore. So by doing this, we are keeping our onion intact. Now, for dicing the onion, what we do is we cut against the grain, just like we did for the slices. And we'll cut a slice, and the onion comes off already diced. So this is perfect to throw into your fry pan, saute it with some olive oil, and maybe have the beginnings of a chili. Maybe we'll use the bell pepper for the chili too. So we can go on ahead and go all the way down the onion, and we can see all the pieces just come off already diced, all ready to use. Let's get that. Once we get to the end, we can actually flip it over, waste not, want not, and dice off little pieces from the end. All right, and then we just toss away this root of the onion. And that's how you chop and dice an onion. Next, we have our bell pepper. So with bell peppers, when you choose a bell pepper, you want to make sure that they are bright and shiny. You want to make sure that they have firm skin, and you want to choose bell peppers on the heavier side. They actually are a little bit heavier as they're more fresh and more firm. And you want to avoid any bell peppers that have any visible bruises on the outside. Now, peppers are mostly available in the summer into the fall, and you can always get them very easily at local stores, local farmers markets, because they're very easy to grow in North Carolina. Now, bell peppers come in a variety of colors. They come in red, like I have here. They come in yellow, and they come in orange. They also come in purple, which is a little bit hard to find, and they also come in green, of course. Now, if you're using raw peppers, you want to choose the red, the yellow, and the orange over the green because they are a little bit sweeter. The green works better for cooking them because they are a little bit more bitter, but it's completely up to you and what you prefer. Now, peppers come in a variety of heat. So bell peppers are pretty mild. They're actually on the sweeter end, but you can choose peppers like jalapenos, habaneros, poblano peppers, and of course those are going to add a little bit more spice to your meals. You can store unwashed peppers of any variety in an open bag for 1 to 2 weeks in the refrigerator. And what I always like to do is once a week I go through and make sure I don't have any forgotten vegetables in my veggie drawer. If I find an aging bell pepper, maybe it's starting to wrinkle a little bit, it will still be fine for cooking. So what I do is I actually chop it up, throw it into a Ziploc bag, and keep it in the freezer for about 6 months. You can always use that to start a soup or a stew or even a chili. So with our bell pepper, the first thing that we want to do is we want to cut off the head and we want to cut off the butt. All right, so I'll put those aside. So we're kind of left with our little headless bell pepper. So we can see right inside, we can see the membranes and we can actually see the seed pods. So I'm going to use a smaller knife, a paring knife, to actually cut through those membranes, just right through the 4 corners there. And then very easily I can twist out the seed pod. This is garbage. And let me get this little bit that I missed, and again, throw that in the garbage. So we have a hollow pepper. With this pepper, we can actually make one slice through one side, and we can lay it flat to slice it. So if I just wanted some sliced bell peppers, maybe to dip in some hummus or some Greek yogurt vegetable dip, I could very easily just slice off the ends. And it's nice and easy because it's already laid flat for us. And all the membranes are already cut out. So we can just slice through like that. Now I actually need diced bell peppers for my recipes this week. So I'm going to gather a handful of these sliced bell peppers. I'm going to gather them in a little pile, and I'm going to run my knife through the opposite direction. And I have some diced bell peppers. So that's how you cut a pepper, and most peppers are going to follow that same rule. Take off the top, take off the bottom, and make sure you remove those inner membranes and those seeds. Now, if you like spicier foods with jalapenos, poblanos, you can leave in some of the membranes, some of the seeds. That's what's going to bring the heat. Just make sure if you touch the insides of a spicy pepper, like the jalapeno, make sure you wash your hands afterwards because those oils can really burn if you accidentally touch your face or any other part of your body. Now, don't forget about this part of the pepper. You can dice up the bottom of the pepper and use it in meals. And you can also remove some of the outer edges of the top of the bell pepper and use them too. So to do that, we just slice through, and there we have the little piece of the top, and we dice through. So again, we're not wasting any of these vegetables today.